morning everyone. My name is Ritesh and today we'll discuss current affairs topic, right? And today's topic is IRDAI, right? So it's called Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. So in this topic we will discuss first. I'll give you a brief overview of what we will discuss in this topic itself. Right. First, we will discuss why this particular authority was in news recently. Right. Then we will discuss the authority itself, what function, what rules it plays, right, and what function it's related to, and why this particular authority was in news recently. Then we will discuss the key points related to the whole topic, which is important for your examination. Right. Next, we will discuss the suggestions which we incur. Right. So we'll discuss the suggestions too, and lastly we'll discuss the issues related to this authority and the currently news which was recent, right? So that's all about the brief overview of this topic. Let us start with the topic first. First, why this particular thing was in news? We will discuss this. So recently, IRDAI, which is also known as Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, right, it proposes a separate regulator for healthcare segment. Now, just understand this whole thing, that after COVID, even just before COVID, after COVID, especially healthcare sector needs so much reforms. We get to realize the importance of healthcare sector after the coming of COVID and pandemic itself. We realize how important is our healthcare sector, what kind of improvement we need to exhibit in those kind of things, right? So we need to place funds in healthcare sector. There are various states that are suffering in the healthcare sector. We have to increase, we have to improve the infrastructure of healthcare sector also, because there are so many states where the lack of infrastructure is at peak, right? Bihar is one such state where healthcare sector is not very much good, and we need to improve our healthcare sector. We need to improve the infrastructure of those kind of things, those healthcare sector. As we already know, after the COVID itself, that we as a country invested so much money to import so many kind of drugs. Even we have scientific temperament and all those things to develop those medicines locally, right? But still there are so many APIs which we need to import from countries like China, and we are heavily dependent on country, especially China, on these kind of things. So these kind of issues also came into play, and because this news is particularly related to healthcare sector and the issues which revolves around the same, so that is why I quoted COVID and the structural changes that we need to implement in these sectors, right? So again, coming back to the news itself, this authority, which is Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, proposes a separate regulator for healthcare segment. Like we have separate regulator for all other kinds of segments, so why don't we have a separate regulator for healthcare sector too, right? So they proposed the similar thing, right? Now, with a view to make a common tariff structure for hospitals, the Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India has proposed this kind of thing. Now, the reason for proposal of separate regulator for healthcare sector was to make a common tariff structure for hospitals. For example, there are so many hospitals that demand so huge amount of money, and their policies and all those kinds are different. So they are this authority demands a separate regulator which will ensure to make a common tariff structure for hospitals, right? So this is the reason why IRDAI has proposed such reforms and demand a separate regulator for this particular sector, right? Now, it has also been noticed that the rate of inflation of hospital charges at present is around 10 to 15%, and tariffs are being changed on a regular basis, right? So, in this particular topic, we are referring to the rate of inflation with related to the hospital charges at present, right? So, the rate of inflation of hospital charges at present is around 10 to 15%. It means inflation means the price, the rise in prices, right? So it in healthcare sector, in hospital charges, the rate of inflation is almost around 10 to 15%, which becomes a serious issue, and that is why to regulate such kind of thing, the authority has proposed to make to constitute a separate regulator for healthcare sector, which will make a common tariff structure for the hospitals under this, right? So that is like, and even also they quoted that the tariffs are actually being changed on a very regular basis. So these kind of tariffs have also been increasing, obviously, but obviously the change happened very dynamically, right? Sorry. Right. So let's discuss now the key points related to this topic, right? So first one is varying tariff. Now, what does it mean, varying tariff? Now, when COVID hit country last year, patients were charged excessively by some hospitals. Now, private hospitals charge excessively for their beds in COVID, right? And because of this pandemic, we get to realize the importance of those kinds of things which we tend to ignore in past. Even we get the tariff structure of various hospitals, we pinpoint these kind of things because of the reason why because of the reason that pandemic happened, and we get to realize how these kinds of things are changing with time. These how the rate of inflation is going on in the healthcare sector, in the hospital itself, right? The rate of inflation is so high, 10 to 15% is very high as a rate of inflation. If we compare to other sector, it's very high. Right. So the varying tariff is one such point that this authority has concluded it, and because of those tariffs, they tend to improve, even suggest such kind of reforms, right? Then the cost to health insurance businesses. Now, just understand this. If insurers continue to pay whatever the hospitals are demanding, the health insurance business will be in poor health in the long run. Already, the industry is experiencing a high number of claims. Right. Now, the cost to health insurance business is another such important thing that this authority has pinpointed. They are saying that if the insurers continue to pay whatever the hospitals are demanding, the health insurance business will be in poor health, right? In the long run, they will be in debt, obviously. And already, even at present right now, the industry is also experiencing a high number of claims. And obviously, because of the COVID, these healthcare sector has been impacted very differently, right? Now, insurance thing in healthcare sector is also being impacted by these kind of things, right? So they are also saying that now the cost to health insurance business is now different for that, right? Now, next point is individual hospital empanelment process, right? Now, they are pinpointing that every hospital, even every such kind of hospital, they have a different individual empanelment process. They try the patients differently. They have some other panels, right? So these kinds of things must be regulated by some kind of regulator, right? So that is why they are demanding such kind of reforms in this health sector. Now, next point is they are saying that there is no infrastructure to regulate hospitals. Right? Now, IRDAI, the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, they are currently does not says that the IRDAI currently does not have the infrastructure to regulate hospitals. Right? That is why they are demanding a separate regulator. As healthcare is a state subject, it's going to be a tough proposition for IRDAI to regulate its hospitals. Right? Now, this authority does not have, they are simply saying that they do not have the infrastructure to regulate hospitals, right? And that is why they're saying to make a separate regulator for healthcare sector, right? And then the point becomes really clear with the point that as health is a again state subject, right? So for IRDAI to regulate the hospital is going to be very tough, right? So that's become an answer for these kind of thing, to make a separate regulator for these kind of sectors, for the healthcare sector right now. Now let's talk about IRDAI. Just have a few points with related to IRDAI. Now, IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, is a statutory body formed under an Act of Parliament, right? Statutory body means it forms under the Act, right? Now, what is the Act? So, it's called Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority Act 1999. So, this was the authority, this was the act under which IRDAI formed. And for this authority has been formed for overall supervision and development of insurance sector in India. So, basically, this authority covers the supervision and the development of insurance sector in India, right? So, it's related to the insurance sector itself. Now, let's make a point with related to suggestions with related to this, right? So, first suggestion is medical inflation operates significantly higher than consumer price index. So, the first one is they are saying that medical inflation, basically the prices under medical sector, under the health sector, operates significantly higher than the CPI. CPI is consumer price index inflation. So they are saying medical inflation operates higher than the consumer price index inflation. Right. Second one is they are saying that Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India has proposed a unique common hospital registry, right? Empanelment process, grading of hospital, and package cost harmonization to promote the standardization and effective utilization of healthcare infrastructure under the insurance program. So, IRDAI not just only proposed a separate regulator for health sector, but also proposed a unique hospital registry. So, there is a common unique hospital registry for different hospitals, and there must be empanelment process there. Then grading of hospitals will be done, and the package cost harmonization, what is the package of the hospital and all. So they will regulate all these kind of things under one umbrella. So and why are they doing these kind of things? To basically promote the standardization and effective utilization of healthcare. So if there's an infrastructure for healthcare, so you should use those infrastructure in a very effective and in a very decent way, right? To utilize these kind of infrastructure, they want to create a very sound ecosystem, right? And the sound ecosystem here means to have a unique common hospital registry in which every hospital get registered. Then there's an empanelment process will be there, how this empanelment will be done. Then the grading of hospitals, you will get to know the grading of hospitals of these, and the packaging cost harmonization. So these comes under the one thing, right? And these comes under the insurance program of this. So it is they also recommended to have a common empanelment portal which can be utilized by all the schemes or insurance companies with standardized empanelment criteria, and will be hugely beneficial with special focus on standard safety and quality parameters. So again, with regards to common empanelment portal, right, they stressed on this fact that there must be a common empanelment portal which can be utilized by all the schemes or even insurance companies, right? So they can use these kind of things very easily if they have a common, like I have said, they want a common hospital registry, right? They want to develop an empanelment process, and then empanelment process will also be a common empanelment portal where where these kind of thing will be utilized by all the schemes or insurance companies, right? So there must be synchronized process of all those things, right? So these are the suggestions that has been made by the authority itself. Then lastly, let's discuss the issues with the health insurance, right? So first one is life status is unevenly distributed. The first problem with the health insurance and the first issue with the health insurance is the life status of people, right? So life status of even people of citizens of India is very unevenly distributed. How? Now, there has been a significant increase in life expectancy of people from 35 years to 65 years since independence. Now, after the independence, the life expectancy of people from 35 to 65 years of age has been increased very significantly, right? So, the main problem with this issue with the health insurance is that the life status of the population is very unevenly distributed, right? Because see, as we already know that India as a country, we have most number of population we have is youth population, right? So that is why we are saying that the life status of all these population is unevenly distributed. Now, second one is low government expenditure. Like, it diverts the majority of individuals, about 2/3, to seek treatment in the costlier private sector. Now, if you consider healthcare sector, now no one wants to go to government hospital, right? In like states, there are so many government hospitals, but the investment in those sectors, in those hospitals, is very less, I think. Or even if they are spending so much on the healthcare sector, why don't we see such kind of change in those hospitals, right? So government hospitals, because of the less expenditure, low government expenditure on those hospitals, government hospitals, people tend to go to private hospitals for their treatments, for their medicines, and private hospitals demand so much money. They are so much costly if you compare to government hospitals. Therefore, consumers won't get any benefit from the healthcare sector by government, basically, because because any problem arise, you obviously go to the private hospitals and not to government hospital, because the infrastructure of those hospitals are not in a very good conditions. The equipments that they provide is not in a very good way. The doctors that they are having are not very regular. Why? Because the low expenditure, again, the salaries are not being given in a very timely manner and all. So all these problems arise in the government hospitals. So that is why consumers or patients, we say, go to the private sector hospitals, and they have to spend so much money on healthcare, right? Next is significant population is missed. Now, at least 30% of the population, or we can say 40 crore individuals, are devoid of any financial protection for health. Right? So this again is a very issue, but the main problem with the health insurance is the first one is the low expenditure on government sectors, low government spending on healthcare. Now, because we have we are looking at budget also, we'll see that how Bihar will spend, or how India, how the budget will project the healthcare sector, how much they want to contribute to the healthcare sector. We'll get to know about that in near future also, right? So that's all about the topic of IRDAI. So if we summarize this topic, now the only thing you need to understand for examination point of view is the IRDAI What is IRDAI? It is Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority in India. You need to remember. Then what it proposed, you need to remember, to have a separate regulatory for healthcare sector especially, right? Then the reasons, rate of inflation, you have to remember 10 to 15% it is around. Then the key points related just for your understanding point of view, I've given these kind of things. Then just remember IRDAI, which act comes under this and all, right? Then the suggestions which IRDAI proposes, common empanelment process, then common registry, grading of hospital, right? These kinds of things just you need to remember. And then the issues, just have a brief understanding of this whole topic, and this all will be very easy. So thank you so much for this topic.